It's not nightly because we're not going to do it every day.
All right, so let's kick things off. Welcome, everybody, to our pilot episode, I guess, of what we're tentatively calling Netflix, with no L, just Netflix, or the Netflix, or we'll probably figure out the name. My name is Rob Price, and with me is...
The Phil online, or Phil.
It's easier. I'm not going to call you the Phil online
No,
through the
don't
whole
do
thing,
that.
so I'll call you Phil. But yeah, the whole... so let's give a kind of a brief outline as to how this podcast came into being. We're all stuck at home right now. At least I am, and I don't Phil, I believe you are as well.
It's like being in a cage with my son.
But the whole point of this was we're all trapped at home. I have another podcast that I do, and it's hard now with all the restrictions that have been put in place, hard for us to get together to discuss movies. And so I put a kind of a call out on Reddit to see if anybody was interested in just kind of over Skype or over some kind of online tool to do a podcast, and Phil answered. So it's just me and Phil, and the whole purpose is to discuss. We went through some ideas as to what it would be about, and Phil was great with some feedback on not just kind of aping on the existing podcast I have, but instead let's do something different. And one thing we don't do in that podcast is discuss Netflix films. And so I was super excited that you brought up the idea to discuss Netflix films and shows and make this more all about Netflix, which I thought was a great idea. So the idea that we're going to go with is we'll do some discussions on shows or movies on Netflix, maybe give some recommendations, and see how that goes. That sounds about right?
Yeah, if you're a Netflix junkie, and that seems to be like the easiest thing to go on these days, then you're going to be just right at home, because I find a lot of the times there's so much stuff that I miss a lot, and then I find out later that something was on that I would have loved. So we might help that.
Exactly. And for me, one of the things, same thing I've run into with that, I'll see a lot of review shows where they'll talk about it and they'll always end up spoiling it, which is always a bummer. And one thing that I didn't want to do with this podcast is I'm a great fan of movies and discussing them. I hate seeing people that are like, well, that movie sucks, or that show sucks. And, well, why? It just sucks. I'm like, it just sucks is never a good enough reason for me. I need to know why. I'm one of those guys that cares about the writing of it, the way it looked, what was any sort of motivation, what was behind the writing, what kind of director the director is, et cetera, et cetera. Everything that goes into it will make or break a show for me, as evident as the show that I wanted to talk about today. But I don't know, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about that, Phil?
It works for me. I like finding out information. I'm not going to go into it as deep, but if you are and you're going to give a lot of information on top of our reviewing, I'm totally up for that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and when I say like going into detail, a great example is like a lot of the movies on Netflix, and this is what really sparked my interest in when you brought up the idea of discussing stuff on Netflix. I wouldn't consider myself a movie snob, but I know I can often, and hopefully you'll call me out on it if I do, I can come off that way. And a lot of movies on Netflix, I'll just look at the synopsis, it comes up, and I'll be like, no, this looks stupid, and I'll just skip it, I'm finding which is more and more not a good idea, especially with Netflix doing one new movie a week. For 2021, is you might miss out on some stuff that's really, really decent. Because if I hadn't kind of hunkered down and said, you know what, the movie snobs are talking about it, I totally would have missed the show The Dark, which we were going to talk about today, which turns out to be a fantastic show. So that's one thing that I've really, I'm hoping that you're going to be able to call me out on and nudge me in the direction of, no, actually watch it. Don't just sit there and go, ugh, I don't want to watch this. This looks stupid.
That was totally me. But we'll get
that
into
was
that.
me. One movie I still haven't watched, and a couple people have brought it up that I should. It just looks, what's the right word? It just looks very common and boring. Is that show The Bird Box, which I know a lot of people said it was just great. And I'm like, you know what? It looks stupid, and I love stupid movies. And that's where you find these movies that are, there's nothing funnier than a movie like, the best example is probably like The Room. If you've ever seen that Time I Watched a movie, The Room. Movies that are made with the best intentions but come off as terrible. Those are always a lot of fun. Movies that are made where
that is not Bird Box.
Just no, absolutely. But it's people who are like, it feels like everybody's just getting paid. You know what I mean? I hate those movies. I feel it's so criminal. Why bother? I understand everybody's got to get paid, but those movies just they suck the soul out of me when I'm watching them. It just sucks.
There's a big fraction of that on Netflix.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I've just become so fucking jaded that I'm just like, nope, that looks terrible. Nope, that looks terrible.
Well, that makes me worried about Outside the Wire, for instance.
Oh, I've never even heard of Outside the Wire.
That one just came in this past week. And,
really?
Is what is it? It's supposed to be like an android human and someone teaming up with him.
Is that the new Anthony Mackie, the Falcon from the Avengers?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I saw a picture for it on Netflix, but yeah, I didn't do much. And another show. Hopefully, we talk about. I have again on my since we discussed to do this podcast, but I haven't watched it yet. Was Altered Carbon? I believe still haven't watched that. Did you watch that?
I have. Not all of it, but the first one to. It lost me in the second season, but again, we'll talk about that eventually.
Okay. But all right. Yeah, exactly. There's. It's funny. I don't want to. There's so much stuff to go over. I don't want to kind of.
So yeah, our audience is going to have to keep with us on this because there's going to be a lot that we're going to talk about from the past. There's going to be a lot that we're going to look forward to in the future, and the present is what we're undertaking the most.
Yeah, and I think these first couple of shows, at least for me, I don't know, you might feel differently, are going to be just kind of stuff that's been on there already to kind of get a feel. And that's another thing we probably should mention. Phil and I have never met in person. We absolutely, we talked online. Yep, let's try this out. So we've never even met in person. This is the first time we've spoken to each other. So hopefully this will, over the next few shows, we get an idea as to what each other's tastes are, and that might influence like recommendations we might have. Also, it would be fun if people start to listen. If they send them recommendations, that would be interesting as well.
Oh yes, for sure. And we'll establish a rapport, whether it's good or bad.
Exactly.
By like the 100th episode, we're gonna hate each other.
Right. Exactly. And then we're like, you know what? Fuck it. We're never gonna meet in person. I don't want to meet this.
Screw this. Guy. Oh, there's a movie in a theater finally. Oh, maybe for that.
Exactly. We'll just sit on opposite ends of the theater.
Well, we're gonna have to anyway.
I don't know that it's funny. So I have at home. I've always been a huge movie guy ever since I was a kid, and so when we moved to Kingston, where we are now, one of the things that I decided to do, we moved from a city close to Toronto named Brampton, and not that anybody really cares, but it was a big money difference between here and Brampton. So we made kind of a good investment when we moved here, and so I finally had the money to build myself a movie room. And the home that we moved into had an entirely unfinished basement. It was nothing down here, which was fantastic because I could build whatever I wanted. So I built myself a movie room. And in my movie room, it's an entirely black room, only lit with LEDs. I got a great big screen. I've got a chair, that goes back, and it's got surround sound and everything. And my whole point of why I'm bringing this up is not to brag about my movie room, but to say that I don't know if I'm going to care to go back to theaters when all of this is done, because I feel like I'm getting such a great experience in my movie room. Going back to the theaters, I'll be like, I can do this better at home.
I completely agree. I get really anxious at the theater when it comes to not having the proper customer service and the screen and the projector, the quality of it. Because if I see a scratch on that screen, it's going to bother me the whole movie. If it's out of focus, which it often is at our Cineplex, I get upset.
Yeah. No, absolutely, totally. And one thing that bothers me too, here we're just gonna, at least for me, I'm gonna sound like an old hermit that hates movies, is I love going to a movie in the cinema the cinema. I sound like I'm 80 years old, but at the movie theater where like I went and saw the Avengers movies, and the Avengers movies, the Star Wars movies, Lord of the Rings movies. When you go see a movie that's like there's a huge amount of emotion, that's always a lot of fun to go
Oh
see.
yeah. Oh
But
yeah.
when
See,
you go to
that's the
watch,
other side of it, right? If you're in there and people are cheering along, and it's like a known thing that like opening night, you're gonna
yep.
be there with your brethren in this. You go to Avengers, and that like I was there for which Avengers was it? The white suits. There must have been
Oh,
after the snap.
there was
The
Endgame, I think, right?
Infinity.
Oh
No,
no,
maybe
Infinity War
Endgame.
is when he snaps. Endgame is the
Ah,
last one.
okay. So it was Endgame, and I was wearing my white suit hoodie,
Nice.
which I got in advance just to be able to do a little bit of cosplay for it. And the emotion in that theater was just great. I love it.
Oh, I can beat that one, and it's a true testament to my Star Wars nerd fandom.
Hmm.
When Force Awakens came out, Scotiabank in Toronto
Hmm.
had a viewing of all 7 movies starting
Oh
at
my goodness.
yeah, I believe we started at 3 in the morning.
Oh
So,
gosh.
and it sold out in like 5 minutes. So once it became available, and it's funny, I was like, okay, this is something I have to do. I'm not going to do this for the next 2, but I'm absolutely going to do it for this one because the first Star Wars movie in how many years? So I went there, and yeah, 3 o'clock. So 3 to 5 goes by with episode 1. I fell asleep during the end of episode 2, and then episode 3, and episode 4 and 5 and then finally we get to episode 7, and
And you
you
woke
can
up, right?
imagine what a room of Star Wars nerds smelled like after about like
Oh,
20 hours. It was bad, but it was by that 7th movie, and everybody was. And the best part too was, so in episode 2, me and this guy was beside me. I went there by myself because there was absolutely nobody I knew that was going to go with me to watch all 7 movies. Me
yeah.
and this
Good
guy
luck.
beside me, we started chatting with each other, and typical movie theater, but whispering to each
Yeah.
other. And there was a guy that was like 2 rows in front of us that turned around and was like, shh, looking at us. And we were like, man, shut
Oh,
the fuck up. We've all seen these movies 1,000 times. All of us
yeah.
can recite the lines on them. Stop bitching that we're talking. But once it got to episode 7, it was anarchy. Like, it's too bad that there weren't subtitles because almost like anytime somebody said Luke Skywalker, whole crowd went berserk. When Chewbacca and Han Solo come on, you see them for the first time coming out of the Falcon, it was anarchy. And when we see
Nice.
by the time we saw Luke at the end, we were all so tired. It was like woo type of thing. Like we were just all done, and we all just kind of like went out of the theaters. Just we're like, it was great, but we were all tired. You could tell it was a bunch of us that were super tired.
It reminds
Um,
me of a pro wrestling crowd.
right? But you, for me, you, there's an opposite side of that spectrum, and it's when you get to a movie like I love Christopher Nolan movies, and how they're complex and they're intelligent, and you really, really need, in Paul Thomas Anderson movies, you really need to pay attention.
Yeah.
And there's one thing I passionately hate is going to a theater, and I'll use a great example. I wanted to go see The Irishman. They were playing The Irishman in theaters around Kingston. And I'm a huge, huge fan of Martin Scorsese, and I really badly want to see it. I still haven't watched it, so it's on my to-watch list. But I was like, you know what? I don't want to go see this movie and know that someone's going to be like chewing popcorn behind me, or somebody might be chatting, beside me or the seat behind me. That part of it just that's like how you feel about like movies being out of focus. That drives me bananas.
Oh yeah. If they bring their kid to a movie they're not really interested in, they're just kicking the chair the whole time.
But so yeah, you know what? We've talked enough about theater experiences and whatnot. The show, I guess, that we wanted to talk about today, that was our thing that we wanted to talk about today, was The Dark. It's a German television show. It's on Netflix. I don't think it was originally. I don't think it was made for Netflix. I'm not 100% sure. I think it might have ran, on some sort of German medium and then came over to Netflix. You know what I mean?
I think it might be Swedish, but I'm
Is it
not
Swedish?
sure.
I thought it was German.
It could be German. It's one of those like I didn't look into it, but it reminded me of like the same people that did The Rain, I
Okay.
think it's
Okay.
called, or Rain, and on Netflix. And what was the other one on Netflix? Oh, I forgot what it's called. It looked like the same. It
Kind
had
of
a power
genre.
plant in it, and it was like weird tales that were each episode was a different story, but they all kind of linked together. And it was in the premise area, the setting was the same. It looked like the same power plant,
Oh,
so it
really?
looks like they
Okay.
were filmed in the same spot. But oh, I forgot what that's called.
I do. So for me, the thing I liked about the dark, I'll go first here, and then I'd love to
Go
hear
for it.
what you thought about it. I so time
Can
travel
I
is
just interject one thing?
sure.
I am not finished season one.
All right.
I
So
am
yeah, that's
on episode 8.
okay. So that's the yeah. I'll make sure not to spoil anything, but I will say that one element of dark that I like a lot, and what kind of hooked me on the show is you get movies like Endgame, great example. Back to the Future, great example, where a there's an like a time travel element or out of body.
Spoiled.
What's that?
Spoiled.
Well, yeah, true. Yeah, yeah.
Not
Okay.
me, but
I guess we should
anyone
say
who
that.
hasn't
That's a
watched it.
good point.
No, it's okay. It comes up. It's the premise of the whole thing. But go on.
I was gonna say it. You find that kind of becomes a plot point itself. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like the whole story revolves around that. And for me, because we've seen that 100 times, and in my opinion, we've seen it perfected in Back to the Future Part One, arguably a little tiny bit less, but still good in Back to the Future Part Two. Time travel is kind of in movies and TV shows. It's kind of it's been done and done really well. And I hate when movies or shows, and not hate, but it just takes away from it when it becomes like a massive part of the story that everything circles around it. The Dark does not do that. The Dark is so absolutely character driven that
Yes.
the other elements of the story and more the science fiction elements of the story become kind of almost like kind of a background character. They're like, oh yeah, okay, that happened, great. But it's the these characters that move forward. That's the best part of the story, and how well thought out this whole story was. And you'll realize that as you get a bit further in the series. Like I love you can tell the idea that they started with an idea and they had an idea for an ending, and they had their endpoint. They knew where they wanted to end, and they built the whole story around that. I love it when movies or TV shows do that because I don't think enough of them do that nowadays.
And everything being so intertwined, and it's hard to. One thing I can say is it's hard to keep up.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like you said, it's a thinker.
I remember there was a couple times where I'd watch it and I'd have to stop, or at the end of the episode, like, okay, so this, and it's almost like you're drawn. It would have been good to have like a notepad to be, okay,
Yeah.
this guy's this, and okay, this is the uncle, and blah 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 blah, and draw it all out. Like you're like, holy Christ! Like
What
there's
happened to the second viewing experience where they give you these little maps of that? What was that? Amazon that was going to do that way
right.
back?
Like they should have called like the Coles Note show that goes along with it, so you would know what the hell was going on. That
Yeah.
was like I remember when I was reading the Lord of the Rings when I was younger. I did that. I had a huge ass bookmark, and I wrote the names for all the additional because Gandalf goes by like 40 different friggin' names, so I would write down all of his different names and who he was. I felt like I needed to do that with the Dark because so many people are referred to, and then they meet this person, and oh my god, there's a lot of stuff that does not pay off until later, like the envelope. I believe in the first show there's this one guy who we won't say the fate that he meets writes a note, and that note is effectively do not open until this date, this year, this time. And
Yeah.
I believe it's his mother that's holding on to it, and the whole time you're like, okay, it's getting closer. It's like, come on, open that envelope, come on. And the show does such a great job of making you want to know what the hell is in that envelope. It's so important to find out. And I found myself just like, oh yeah, dude, I got to keep watching. I got to know where that goes, where the answer that's in there goes.
It was the payoff, like you said. It clued you into what you were starting to realize, and it's a good premise for the show. Like I absolutely love the show. I was just okay. We talked about this. When you brought it up first, I was like, that's me. I'm the person who watched the first two episodes and decided it's not for me.
Yeah.
And then you brought it up when we were talking about what we were going to talk about, and I was like, sure, I'm gonna give it another go. I'm gonna start off where I left off, and I'm glad. I'm super happy that this happened, because this show is freaking amazing.
Yeah. It's a very intelligent show, and for me, that's one of the things that turns me off of a show is when it feels dumb. You know what I mean? It feels like it's fan service, or it's just
It
kind
wasn't
of
well thought out.
exactly. And there's nothing worse than when you're watching a show, and I mean, of course, horror movies are going to do it, and of course, action movies are going to do it. But there's nothing worse than watching a show and you're like, who the hell would ever do that? You're watching Friday the 13th, and someone turns around, no, Friday the 13th part, like fucking 19 or however many of them there are, and they're like, hey, Jason, I'll be able to take you down. Like, dude, nobody's been able to. Just run away. Just fucking run. And with The Dark, it's smart. Like the decisions these people make are the real decisions that you would make as a human being, and that is great. There's also a lot to be said for the look of the show. That was another thing that really, really attracted me to the show. My God, is it dour?
It's
no
a
happiness.
rundown town. Everyone hates everyone. Everyone hates themselves.
Yep.
It's a depressing show.
It really is. And it's not that it's just at least for me, it's not that it was depressing that, man, I want to kill myself. It's just like, it's every day is like life is meaningless is how it feels in the first couple of shows. Like life is meaningless. We just all continue through this, this waking life. We just keep on going forward. We do our job. You know what I mean? It's just depressing. Like that.
It's very important to say that it doesn't depress the viewer. It's just showing a depressing life in the show. It's a setting.
And there's no one and again, for me, I thought that was great that there's no one person that's like, hey, everything's great, and my goodness, why is everyone sad? Like everybody is. It's just this town. It's almost like this town sucks the life out of them. You know what I mean? And as the show continues, you figure out there might be a little bit of reality behind that, and it's just it deals exactly as much as it should with every show. Like I said, it was very thought of. They paid close attention to how this story was going to progress and the allotted segments that they should put it out in.
So we've said that it's time trope type in show. Mm-hmm. We've said that there's a lot of character-driven, intertwined settings going on. What else can you say about it without giving spoilers?
I will say, very well acted, especially from a lot of the kids. If there's one thing we all know, like, was it kids and animals? They just they're painful to watch sometimes. I'm watching a show right now from 2014. I can't remember. It's a show called The Strain that was on FX. The children actors in it are brutally bad to the point where you're like, oh God, just get past this scene. Just even watching this kid is just nails on a chalkboard for me. But I will say that even the kids, in all honesty, the kid actors in Dark are great. They're really, really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it totally sucks you in, and like there's, I'm just like, this kind of stuff happened back then in some of the episodes, and I'm like, of course it did, but it's just like it's atrocious. Like it's not a spoiler, so I'll just say one of the events that happens, and it's one kid peeing on another kid, and I'm just like, oh my God, like yeah, that I'm sure that even happens now, but holy cow, like, ugh.
Yeah,
it's really good at putting forth that bully mentality in many aspects of the show.
Yeah, and another one was and I think Stranger Things did it really well as well. I'm very hit and miss on Stranger Things, so that may be something we can discuss later. But one
Hmm.
thing Stranger Things did really really well is kind of teen angst. I think Stranger Things is a bit more comical than The Dark is, but they got teen angst right. The Goonies really really perfected it. Breakfast Club really really perfected it, and
Yeah.
and I find The Dark is great with their teen angst and how these kids, how angry these kids are, especially the I can't remember his name now, the oldest son, who I don't want to spoil what happens to that for
It
you.
goes in a realistic, depressing
Yeah,
avenue as like a completely different version of what you're talking about when you see Stranger Things or anything else.
yeah. It's you can feel the kind of the angst, you know what I mean, of these characters really angry. And as for me myself, or being a younger man full of angst, I totally get where that guy's coming from, and just this need to lash out and this need to be kind of destructive and be kind of oh, I'm a punk and I'll do what I want. It makes it easier to identify with those characters, and it makes what they go through as the show progresses that much more difficult, because even though that's never going to happen to me, I know where that headset would be. It never becomes phony. It never becomes kind of a movie cliche. That's for me why I really really like the show.
Another part of that is, without giving any examples, when a character that you learn to really hate then becomes someone that you're like, oh, they were not always like this, or oh, there's another side to them. Just like how in real life you might hate your neighbor, like I do, but they could have a whole another side to them that you're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, like there's that too, and you
Yep.
kind of start going down this feelings area where it's like I am uh, pulled two ways now, and that's how good this show is.
It never does. It never feels for me. Never felt cliche. Never
No,
felt like just one of those movie tropes. It's all very honest. That was. And I will say too. I believe in the end of the first episode. Again, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but a body is discovered, and if what happened to this body feels like you can watch movies, and one of the great examples is Silence of the Lambs. Like, you watch what happens to the victims in Silence of the Lambs, of Buffalo Bill, and you're like, my God, that's horrendous. You know what I mean, like what he did to
well,
those
I'm
women.
in the eighth episode of season one, and they still haven't said exactly what happens. So I
You
have
do
no
eventually
clue.
find out, and you're like, whoa, that's
Yeah,
hardcore, man.
I'm trying to I'm trying to figure it out, but I can't.
And you know what, it's one of those things that uh well, I guess you might. I couldn't. I sure couldn't. But it's brutal. It's one of those things that's just uncommonly brutal, and but it's never done. For there's no gore to the show. It's never done to scare
No.
or to gross out. It's very honest in its brutality. It's a great show. I really can't say enough about how much I enjoyed the show. The only thing I will say is, as kind of, and again, not giving anything away, um, it what's the right way to say it? You know what? Maybe I'll wait until you've seen more of it. So we'll come back to this again when you've seen more of it. But yeah, the show, and I'm curious to see what you'll think of its third season. I believe
Along
third
the
and final.
along the same lines of this show, um, that nuclear power plant um, that went down. What was it called again?
Chernobyl.
Chernobyl. So that show that was really good. Let's
Was
say.
Chernobyl a Netflix show?
I don't think it was. I don't think it was Netflix.
I thought it was
I could be
Amazon.
wrong. It could be HBO. It could be Amazon. Um, it was. I feel like it was HBO, but
Okay.
I could be completely wrong on that. But it feels along that, like, without the interwebbing storylines and all that, but the way that it feels so real, it feels, these two shows feel like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if anyone out there is planning to watch this because they're probably going right now, okay, I know nothing about this. 'Cause we
And I'm going to
can't
turn
say
this
enough.
fucking podcast off so they don't spoil any more of it for me.
Well, yeah, we're trying to be as careful as we can, and I would say it's going to be a slog the first few episodes,
Yeah,
but
there's a lot of
stick
production.
into it.
Yep, yep.
I'm
It's
in,
funny,
like I said, 8th episode, and I want to go and watch some more.
but yeah, this is a show like that. Like, you got to stick with it because it gets really, really good. There's a lot of introduction, and all that introduction is entirely necessary for you to understand the plight of each one of these characters.
Well, yeah, even if you don't like character development, if you're a trope type of person, if you just like science fiction, if you stick into it, you're gonna love this.
Yeah. I will say it is not made for people who like. My wife is the type of person, she loves cut and dried endings. She loves like bow tied at the end, and here's exactly how everything ends, and here's how everything is going to play out. Those are the movies she likes. I can't stand those movies, which is why her and I don't have very similar tastes in a lot of stuff. But this is not one of those shows. So if you're one of those are the only people that I would recommend to avoid this show. If you love everything being tied up a nice bow at the end of the episode, this is not the show for you. But all right, so that's any other closing things you had to say about The Dark?
Watch it.
Watch it, yeah, exactly. There you go. Watch it. Even though it's been on Netflix, I think now for about a year, No, I believe it came out last year. So
it's 3 seasons, so 3 years.
Is it 3?
Unless
but
they did seasons for back to back.
I don't think they did them back to back, but again, I thought it was because it was a show that had already been done in a different medium and was purchased by Netflix, but I might be wrong.
That's right.
Yeah, it may be, because I recall seeing it, and maybe it's only because I was watching
2020, but who knows?
Yeah, who knows? But all right, so that's it for talking about The Dark. Absolute same opinion as Phil. Go watch it. It is a wonderfully good show. I know we wanted to talk about I don't think we have any honorable mentions as of right now. At least I don't want to spoil any honorable or you know what I mean, waste any that we could use.
I do have one honorable mention, but we will talk about it later, I'm sure, in another honorable mentions conversation. But I do want to say I am really getting into a WandaVision.
I haven't started watching it yet.
No spoilers, but it's slightly slow at the beginning, but they're building to something great.
Really? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to give it a try then.
Do you watch New Rock Stars on YouTube?
I don't. Nope.
Okay, so New Rock Stars is a YouTube channel that dives deep into synopsis, reviewing shows, Easter eggs. It goes through like the whole show and tells you, okay, this thing means this, and this is how it's tied to the Infinity War, and whatever storyline. And they go into this whole I don't know what to call it, diatribe. I don't know, but I would suggest going to New Rock Stars on YouTube and checking out even for The Mandalorian. They do it for that, and each episode. And they'll tell you where in Star Wars this is from, blah, 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 which you probably know most of. But
yeah, I was kind of nerdy when it came to The Mandalorian, especially watching with a bunch of friends and be like, did you see, R5D4's head? And they were like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm like, God damn it, you're not real Star Wars fans. But no, that sounds like something.
I snooped on your Instagram, so I know you have models of Star Wars, models of Star Trek. So I know you're into that. I gotcha.
Yeah, no, that definitely sounds like, and you know what, that'd be one of those YouTube shows that I'd find myself kind of yelling at the screen, like, you're wrong, that's not what it's all about. And you know what, so sorry, I don't want to get sidetracked here, because as I said to you before,
that's going to be the show.
I'm getting sidetracked, but
that's what we should call it, sidetrack.
Yeah, Netflix and sidetrack.
Netflix / sidetrack, whatever.
But for me, so I love Star Wars. Huge Star Wars nerd. One of my tattoos, my arm is sleeved up completely in Star Wars. Tons of Star Wars shit in my office. Spent a good fortune of my life on Star Wars stuff. there is one group of people that I cannot stand, and it's Star Wars fans. The hardcore Star Wars fans, like those people that say George Lucas ruined my childhood because they didn't like the prequels, the people that watched The Last Jedi and were like, this is Star Wars, and then the people on the other side, they were like, you just don't understand what Star Wars is like people.
Or people who
You have to
go and say
understand.
Star Trek doesn't exist.
Oh God. But people need to understand, like, and it's funny because I'll see these people that are like, like you can imagine some of these fucking people that when I was in the audience for those 7 movies, there was 2 guys that were dressed like Kylo Ren and what was he? The other person wasn't dressed like I think it was the other guy was dressed as Luke, like that Luke from Tatooine, in the first movie, episode 4.
Yeah.
These guys stayed in costume for all 7 movies. And then throughout the movies, they were like, when there was a break, we only had 15 minutes break between each movie to run to the bathroom and run back. But these guys would pop up and would start lightsaber fighting. They had these wood lightsabers with them. And these guys were incredible, but it's like, holy shit, I'm never going to get that hard. Like I'm never going to be one of those guys. Those guys are awesome. Don't get me wrong, but I'm never going to be one of those guys. I went to the Star Wars 40th celebration. I believe it was Florida or California. I can't remember. But some of the people there, again, just these huge nerds that will argue anything. They're like, those aren't the boots that Han Solo wore. That's not the type of cape that Darth Vader wore. It's like, dude, this movie is about a bunch of Muppets in space, and it's got Wookiees and Ewoks and Jabba the Hutt. You don't take it as seriously as you're taking it. Take it as it was intended to be, kind of, these stories that we've all grown up with, and a lot of analogies, a lot of metaphors, but don't take it as seriously as you're taking it. Those people drive me bananas. So that's one thing that you may find me bitching about a lot is those guys that are just fucking crazy. And it doesn't even need to be Star Wars. It's the crazy fans of anything. And the new people who bother me, and I'm sorry to so get fucking off track, is people who love that show Picard. And I'll leave it at that, and we'll leave that for another episode. I can't stand it.
I enjoy it.
What's that?
I enjoy it.
Really, I hate it. I hate it because it's not Picard at all. It is not fucking Jean-Luc Picard. But yeah, so I don't have any honorable mentions right now, and I'm sorry to go off on such a goddamn diatribe.
Oh, I could give you so many, but I think it's important that we decide on what we should watch for next week.
Yeah, I would like to. Oh, sorry. Actually, you go first.
I already mentioned one that I think would be the obvious go-to. We could do more than one, but trying to pull it up here. It's that new one with Anthony.
Yeah, I keep on wanting to say Altered Carbon, but I know it's not Altered Carbon.
That one failed, didn't it?
I haven't watched Altered Carbon, so I'll have to. Don't tell me now it fucking failed. I didn't know if they could or not.
They didn't bring back the main character from the first season.
Oh.
So either in the second or the third, I don't know. I don't think I watched the third, so it must have been the second one that Anthony Mackie came in. I forgot who the main character was in the first. See, I have to everyone out there, I will admit right now, I have a horrible memory, and it's weird. I'll remember some really good stuff, and then I'll forget a lot of stuff like names. It's due to my ADHD. It's due to my anxiety. I'll get into that in future episodes. But Outside the Wire is
Outside the Wire.
Definitely do.
And I'm sorry, I'm just scribbling it down now.
Just because it came out this past week, and it's going to be on the topic of most people's Netflix queues.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So next week's we'll have to watch what we can of Outside the Wire and discuss.
It's only a movie, so it's not a series.
Oh, is it really? Okay, cool. All right, good. That'll make it easier.
Throw one out there. Let's do one.
All right. See, let me go back to my list because
if I've watched it, I can give you an opinion.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? We were talking about it just before we started recording it. One that I gave up on because I just didn't. It was one of those. I felt I had a lot of comic book tropes, a lot of comic book show tropes. I found all but one or two of the characters boring, and that was the Umbrella Academy. I just did not care. Of all the stuff that was going on, didn't give a shit. The only person that I found remotely interesting was number 5. I decided he was a lot of fun to watch. I found his whole storyline was great, and how he popped into the past, lived in the past, and popped in the future. Thought that was great. Every time number 5 was off the screen, I was like, oh, there's Gorilla Guy. Don't care. Oh yeah, life's tough for him. Yep, okay, great. Oh look, there's girl Ellen Page, or sorry, Elliot Page now that plays a Stradivarius. Yep, life's hard for her. Oh, and that guy's going to turn out to be a bad guy. I guess we got to wait until that fucking happens in like 5 shows from now. It was to me, very, very obvious what was going to happen, and I just got bored. And that Klaus character, every time he was on the screen, I found myself just muttering like, ugh. Every time the guy would do something, make some stupid pop reference, or make some kind of not gay reference, but like some sort of just sexual reference in some capacity. I was like, ugh, I hate this guy. I hate the way the actor's portraying this character. I hate this character. His power is stupid that he can talk to the dead. Hated it. And it was one of the shows that I'm one of those guys that if everyone says no, stick with it, I'll stick with it. I could not stick with it. I hated the Umbrella Academy.
Okay. I enjoyed it, but I can see where you're pointed. I can see where you're at, because I started it and stopped. It was another example of that, where it's like a couple episodes in, I'm just like, I'm not feeling it. I don't feel the need to continue. Like I would, but I won't. And then I found out my friends were into it, my close friends, and I was like, okay, it's a talking point now, so I'll try again, just like with The Dark. Yep. And I've watched it since, but I feel like some of it might, like how you feel about it, might be due to the fact that it kind of feels very like green screenish studio shot, compared to Dark, where it feels like it's all on location, which is the best way to shoot anything, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that might be one part that might be bothering you.
It also felt so. There's, you'll watch a show, and like the Ape Guy's, I can't remember his name, so I'm similar to you in that I'll forget names, so I'll just like call him by whatever I remember about the character. Ape Guy, Time Guy, Violin Girl.
That's their names in the show. Go with it.
Right, exactly. That's how everyone recognizes them.
But they're all numbers.
Oh, that's why I only remember fucking number 5. And funny, number 5's the only one that never takes a name. Everybody else takes a fucking name except number 5. The only reason I remember number 5 is he's always just number 5. That's who he is. And he was fun. He was a member. But about that. So Ape Guy. Ape Guy is a big ape, and instantly I don't care why. And I'm sure
not to be confused with the chimpanzee.
Oh yeah, the chimpanzee's like their butler or something. I don't know. And again, didn't care enough to
substitute father / butler.
Yeah, like the Alfred, effectively, right, of the whole story. Yeah. But as soon as I saw Ape Guy, he comes on and he's this big guy. His head is, it's clear that it's not muscles. There's a bigger frame to him. As soon as I see him, don't care. And then Klaus showed up. I'm like, oh my fuck, I don't care at all. But with Ape Guy, so Ape Guy goes to the moon, and you're like, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody who hasn't watched.
So let's put it this way: you're not a fan of characters that don't have a fully fleshed out life. Like it feels like they're one dimensional in this show.
One dimensional, and then something occurs that you're supposed to, as an audience, you're supposed to go, oh, this occurred. I care about this character now.
Exactly.
Whenever that kind of forced shit happens, I'm like, don't care. You know what I mean? Like, nope.
Yeah, you have nothing to
care about this character.
No, I totally agree with you on that point.
And that's what I feel happened to every single goddamn character in that show, except number 5. Every single character was like, oh, this bad thing happened. You should care about them. Like, no, you can't force my emotions out of me. I'm going to care from them from the jump, or I'm not going to care at all. And with Ape Guy, didn't care. You know what I mean? Like, it has to be a very organic thing. How you care about a character has to be organic. If it's not, then it's false and it's bullshit.
You make a good point. It's very much, I don't care about this person for who they are. I care about, not even care. I'm just interested to see where the story is going.
Yep. use number 5 as great example. Number 5 disappeared, and then they're showing flashes of what happened to 5, and he shows up again. He's like, huh, well, this is fucked up. I'm kind of back where I was. But he's not rattled. He's not tears coming down. It's not kind of what you would commonly expect. He just goes about his life like, all right, shit's happened. I got to figure out what's going on. Nothing stands in his way. I like that about him. Like that character trait. That's the character that I was drawn to. But
that's probably the reason why is probably because he is also like the most fleshed out character. Like he has his background, like a lot of it throughout the show. Like a lot of the other characters are not fully fleshed out yet.
And stuff just drops in, and you're, this happened to Ape Guy, so care about Ape Guy now. Like, no, that's not how it works. I'm not going to give a shit if you say care about this character. I'm gonna be a petulant teenager and turn around and go, no, fuck you. I'm not going to care about you because you're telling me to care about him. I'm going to care about him from the jump, or I'm not going to care about him at all.
Oh, I'm going to make a weird reference, and I'm going to say How I Met Your Mother last season, where they just interjected the mother in the last few episodes, or 2 episodes, 1 episode, and we're supposed to care and like this ending, and I'm just like, no, we want to see Robin be the mother.
Yep,
you can't watch that.
When you force an emotion in an audience, to me it feels so disgenuine that you notice it. Like your brain notices it, and you're like, no, this I'm not going to care about this guy because you're telling him to care about me. I've got to care about him because I grew to care about him. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's where I stand with the Umbrella Academy. I gave up on it. I don't see myself picking it up again unless someone tells me that, hey, it is a complete 180 on the show. It turns around and becomes great. But I just don't give a shit about any of those characters unless it becomes like everybody else. Like, and it was funny. Remember, so I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but something happens where there's a possibility that 5 could be the only character that exists. I was like, oh yeah, man, I could watch this show. Number 5, and he's sad about the rest of the family. Oh great, I'm on board with this. And then no, that's not real. I'm like, shit, screw this then. I don't care about it.
We know now that Rob would really like a number 5 spin-off show where it's just number 5 jumping through time.
Exactly.
I said too much, but
it's like Kung Fu, but just number 5. You just follow him as he jumps across time everywhere he wants to go.
Yeah, which would be awesome. It's basically Quantum Leap. Is that what it is?
But you'd call it Kung 5 because he'd be like David Carradine in Kung Fu, and he'd be jumping around time. He'd call it Kung 5.
There you go. It works. You're in.
So yeah, this has been, so far, we call it Netflix. Who knows what the hell name we'll actually give it. We'll come up with some sort of intro and outro music. There's all sorts of stuff online that you can figure out for intro, outro music. Or maybe I have an electronic drum set here. Maybe I'll do something with that. But
you're just gonna put like a little pause in the middle of the show, have an intermission, go get your snacks, go to the washroom while I play some drums.
I'll play some smooth jazz, dun, 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 dun. Or I'll just the opening be like dun 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 dun, and that'll be our intro.
Netflix.
Or me just saying it. There we go.
You gotta get the trailer voice. 2 men. I'm not gonna go any better. You gotta write something for me.
And what we've got, I've got to get a pitch that fucking pitches my voice down super, super low so I sound like James Earl Jones.
No, I can help you with the trailer voice. Don't worry about that.
All right, wicked. And then
one man, one desire.
2 men
in a world.
1 argument.
I still haven't watched Cobra Kai.
That's another one, man. And you know what? I'm sure Cobra Kai is great, but I don't fucking care about the Karate Kid from the 1980s.
I watched it in the 80s.
But like, what the fuck is Cobra Kai be about? Like a karate school? And I'm sure it's great. And I'm sure people, if anybody ever listens to this, are going to be like, you fucking jerk, that show's great. I'm sure it's great, but I don't give a shit about Ralph Macchio now. I don't care what's going on.
Let's put this out there, okay? Wherever you see this posted, I'm sure we're going to post it on Reddit, right? Just to get some feelers. Comment and tell us, in general, your criticism of the show, because we want to hear it. You might make us cry. We might not listen to some of it. But I want to know something. If you love Cobra Kai, which is the majority of the people who watch it, do I need to watch the movies over again? Because I don't want to fall asleep.
I don't want to trying to remember. Oh, who was Daniel's
Yeah.
brother or mother or son or whoever the hell other characters were in fucking Karate Kid from 1980 that I'm supposed to
I'm
remember.
sure it helps to watch them, but I'm guessing it's one of those shows where you can just go in and it'll feed you the information. But yeah, give along with your criticism of how good I'm doing on the show today. I want to hear I want to hear reviews of everything we've talked about, like your opinions of these shows, and I want to know: do I need to watch these movies, and do I need to watch the show?
Also, if you are pro Cobra Kai, which is fine, you can like whatever you like. You can't say Cobra Kai is great just because it is, man. You just have to watch it. It's great. That is not a fucking excuse to watch a show. You don't need to go into uber detail, but you need to at least say the characters are good. It's well acted. The show is well shot. Great cinema. You have to give me a reason to watch the show. Telling me that a show is good just because it's good, I'm never going to watch it.
It would be a really good way to troll Rob anyway. So just, whatever you want to do.
You know what it'll be? It'll be you wouldn't understand it. I'm not going to get into it because he wouldn't understand anyway. Let him go watch his Star Wars movies and love them.
Just watch your Picard and shut up.
Exactly. And then you know what? Someone's going to start going into Picard fan fiction in a fucking subreddit about Picard.
We're going to learn so much about Picard.
Right? Oh, maybe I'll turn around. Oh, you know what? This is a good show. What was I talking about? It totally makes sense how Data
I
comes
saw
back.
people that were on set, they were extras, and they were saying how Picard becomes a Cardassian in the second episode of the next season. So you really have to tune in.
We're gonna get
Klingon,
fucking Reddit comments and written in Klingon.
If you know how to read the data pads, all the power to you. That's fine. Go
Exactly.
for it.
Oh, but all right, that brings us to the end.
We'll have more. We'll have more fleshed out. The show is going well. I feel it's my opinion, but we will have more places to go to watch our show in the future. Coming next time you see this post. But this was a pilot. We're just seeing how it goes.
Yeah, exactly. And by the next one, we'll be have totally changed everything. You know what? We'll get based on all the feedback that we get, it'll be totally changed around the next time.
Yeah,
from here.
The new co-host for Rob will be a 14-year-old boy who loves Picard.
That's right, and it'll be only Amazon shows, no longer Netflix. And all we'll talk, no, CBS All Access. There we are. Only fucking shows about Star Trek.
Oh, you just ruined I was going to say Primix.
What the hell's Primix?
It's like Netflix, but...
Oh, shit. Oh, I thought you were saying it was an actual show. I'm like, oh my God, there's another one.
I need to watch this.
Subscribe to. It would cost me $18,000 a month for all these shows.
Only available in the US.
But all right, I think we're finally at the end.
Yeah. So
I have been Rob.
I have been irritating to some, but fun for others.
All right, bye everybody.
Bye.